This is attorney Andy Marcantel and attorney Rachel Moss from the Attorneys for Freedom Law Firm, and we are coming to you straight from Goals in Knoxville, Tennessee. We're having a wonderful time here meeting some awesome people, one of which is sitting with us right now. We'd like to introduce you to Doug Parker. He's an expert, and you guys like it when we do these legal analysis shooting videos. We've got an awesome video to analyze for you today. I'm sure we're going to have lots of thoughts on it. But before that, Doug, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Why don't you start by just introducing yourself to our listeners?
Yeah, Doug Parker. I'm retired from the Georgia Bureau of Investigation for 30 years. Past 11 years, been working on use of force cases, and even with the GBI, was investigating use of force even before, 1983, before Graham Connor and Illinois versus Gates and all those, so the standard was different. So made some changes through there on these types of investigations, and now working privately with private citizens who were charged with crimes in a self-defense case, and also still law enforcement.
So you've really seen it. You've got tons of experience seeing these things from both sides.
Yes, sir. Been in the courtroom a lot since 1983.
Yeah, we were looking at your CV. Looks like you got some extensive courtroom experience.
Yes, sir.
For sure. And do you have, so what's the name? I wanted you to be able to plug is it a consulting firm or is it a?
Yeah, well, it's Parker Consulting Investigations, but I have a parent company that I've started which deals with use of force and that documentation process. And I've developed an app for that for private citizens to be able to document it. That won't be out until February.
Okay.
For a client to sit down with an attorney and go through those cognitive questions, because these are why investigations. I mean, yeah, you call 911, hey, I shot the guy, he's over there, help him. Now I want my attorney. But that's the time for this client and the attorney to get together and go over those prompts and talk about the why.
Yeah.
Why force was used.
Yeah, I guess before we hop into the video here, I want our listeners to learn a little bit about you and your background, where you're coming from with this. What made you want to get involved in these types of cases?
I was working a case for a police officer down in Kingsland, Georgia, and I'm certified to do a forensic walkthrough. So I'm walking through this officer about a week later. I already knew what he told his attorney before I got involved. And so I'm walking through at 11 o'clock at night when this happened. And I'm asking him, what happened here? And he said, well, it was just a crash and a passenger got out, driver got out, and I chased the driver. I said, well, what were you thinking about the passenger? He said, well, I thought he was running in the woods and I thought he was going to double back on me. I said, why didn't you tell your attorney that? He said, well, I didn't think it was that important. So after the third, I don't think it was that important, that's when it hit me. There's got to be a way for officers and citizens to be able to explain why they did certain things and what was in their mind, what they were thinking throughout the whole incident.
Rachel, how many times have we been working on a case and 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months into it, our client tells us something for the first time, and we say,
by the way,
why didn't you tell us that? That's so
Exactly.
important. So yeah, that definitely, it's an important role, right?
It really
because
is.
We're lawyers, so we get kind of into the trenches, and we think like lawyers. And a layman may not be understanding of what are those important components, the elements of the crime that the state's trying to prove.
Well, and that helps you out in your defense also. I mean, that guides you to how we're going to defend this person, now knowing all the facts from the person that used force from their point of view.
Absolutely. All right, well, I think we should dive into this. Rachel, do you want to set the scene for us on kind of what we're going to be looking at here?
Of course. So in this video, we're going to see a traffic stop occur. So this happened in Russ County out in Texas. And in this video, an officer will stop a young man, Timothy Michael Randall. He will claim that it was because he ran a stop sign. After the stop, there is some conversation, let's say, between the officer, Sergeant Iverson, and Randall. And then from there is a shooting. So I think within, we can dive into the video.
Yeah, and I think we're trying to determine good shoot, bad shoot, what are some defenses in the case, things like that, and kind of analyze this every which way. It's going to happen pretty quickly, but we chose this video because there's a lot to talk about here. So
Yes, sir.
Maybe I'll start by just playing the whole thing, and then we can kind of go back piece by piece.
.517 County traffic.
Good.
Yeah, I'm just going to be off of 64 west of Bunny's on near 4125 on a paper dealer tag 010322. Actually, that's the date. It's an out-of-state tag. Union David 5713. It's going to be a maroon Nissan Altima occupied one time, it looks like.
What state is that 28 out of?
I can't see it right now. Possibly Oklahoma. There's an OU sticker on it. Good evening.
How you doing, sir?
Good. I'm Sergeant Ivers from the Russ County Sheriff's Office.
Yes, sir.
The reason I pulled you over is you blew that stop sign back there.
No, I didn't. I came to a complete stop at that stop sign.
All right.
I mean, I did. I came to a stop.
No, you didn't. So,
What do you mean? I mean, what do you mean?
you step out of the vehicle for me.
Okay. I mean, can you show me that I blew?
Step out of the...
Okay. I'm just wondering.
Turn around, put your hands right there real quick. You got anything on you? You shouldn't. Keep your hands out of your pocket.
I wasn't. I don't have anything on me,
Put
officer.
your hand behind your back.
Officer, I don't have anything
Put your
on
hands
me.
behind your back.
Officer, why are you? What? Can you just tell me, officer? Please, can you tell me what I'm under arrest for? Please, please.
Get out. .517 County.
And it's difficult to see, but he does make it about 20 paces before he falls down. The gunshot wound went, I think, under his arm and came out his chest cavity, hit him in the heart, and he died pretty quickly there. So, yeah, a lot going on here. So we could go back and break it down individually, but I guess I want to start with just your overall thoughts, Doug. Is there anything that you see that's problematic in the initiation of the contact or initial contact or anything on how the sergeant initially handled the incident?
No, sir, but again, what's in his mind? You know, where's his help? Where's his backup? Evidently, he's concerned. I mean, it's nighttime. He goes up, touches the car for a reason, and enters into a conversation with him. But I have to know all those factors, you know,
Sure.
all those things. You know, what's in the officer's mind? Why is he concerned to start with? You got out-of-state plates, I believe, or at least a drive-out tag. And I talk about levels of awareness, you know, going up. So, stop at night. Where's his backup? Did he see more than one person in the car? I think he said he thinks one. Now, when he gets up closer, you know, I guess he was able to see that there was nobody else in there. But his first thought is, how many people are in the car?
Yeah. When we talk about traffic stops, we actually give a speech sometimes that we call How to Survive a DUI Traffic Stop. But this could apply to all traffic stops, not just DUIs.
Sure.
And we remind people that from the officer's perspective, what you're talking about, what's in the officer's brain, a traffic stop is by far one of the most stressful situations for that officer. He's just voluntarily pulled somebody over who's probably irate, annoyed, doesn't want to have an interaction with him. It's nighttime. He doesn't know who this person is, what their characteristics are. Is this person a danger? And so we tell people to keep in mind that when that officer approaches you, you're being approached by somebody who's probably stressed out about the situation.
Yeah, how long has he been working? Did he work a double shift?
Right.
You know, is he having problems at home?
You mentioned that he touched the car. Was that to fingerprint the car and identify it was?
In case something was to happen to the officer, yes, sir.
Yeah, I had heard about that, and I've seen that happen sometimes in some videos, some don't. In your opinion, is that an indication that this officer is approaching in a concerned fashion?
Yes, and that's in his mind. Again, it's late at night. In what area is he stopping this guy in? Does he have friends around there? So yeah, I want people to know if this guy shoots me and kills me and gets away with that car, my DNA is on that car.
Sure. He tells the reason for the stop. He's like, You blew that stop sign. The guy immediately denies it. He says, yeah, you did. Step out of the car. So I think that it would be helpful for people when we're analyzing this let's just kind of take it as a given that the guy did the traffic violation. Let's not get hung up or confused on that point. And the reason for that is whether or not he committed, let's say that he just totally fabricated the traffic stop. The law of the land is that when you are asked to step out of the vehicle, even if it's an unlawful traffic stop and ends up being a constitutional violation that your attorney complains about later, you got to comply because of the officer safety exception.
Right. Comply now, fight your case later.
Exactly.
That's what we always try to tell people. Okay, and so he's asked to step out of the vehicle. United States Supreme Court says you got to step out of the vehicle.
Lawful command. And I noticed the driver's head was, I guess, turning to the right as he was. So I'd want to know from the officer, what were your concerns there too? Why is he looking over in the passenger side or looking away when the officer's coming up?
Yeah, that's a really good point. There's so many other factors that a video doesn't tell. One video doesn't tell. Let's continue on here.
I'm Sergeant Ivers from the Rusk County Sheriff's Office.
Yes, sir.
The reason I pulled you over is you blew that stop sign back there.
No, I didn't. I came to a complete stop at that stop sign.
All right.
I mean, I did. I came to a stop.
No, you didn't. So.
What do you mean? I mean, what do you mean?
Step out of the vehicle for me.
Okay. I mean. Can you show me that I blew?
Step out of this.
Okay. I'm just wondering.
Now watch his right hand. Watch Mr. Randall's right hand.
You got anything on you? You shouldn't keep your hands up.
Immediately messing with his pants.
It looks to me like he goes in the back, goes to a back pocket, and is trying to conceal something.
And what we know now is that after this occurred, they did find a meth pipe on his person. And so from the perspective of the officer, he didn't know what this young man had on him at that time. We know that it was just a pipe, but this officer had no idea. And I could see from an officer's perspective, anytime someone is reaching for something on their person, that officer could be concerned that that's a weapon, potentially a firearm.
To me, being in law enforcement is always a weapon.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's all officers think that. You just don't know what the person has in the waistband, in the pocket, front pocket, back pocket, whatever.
Yeah. So obviously reached back, quickly moved his hand, trying to conceal something, and the sergeant says, "Get your hands off of your pants," and forces his hands on top of the vehicle. I don't think you'll disagree with me that I think the officer so far is completely within the bounds.
Sure, yes, sir.
Yeah,
I agree.
Don't see any issues so far. Remember, too, important point, that even if this was an unlawful stop, even if this is an unlawful detention, even if it's trying to effectuate an unlawful arrest, the rule is you have to comply even with unlawful arrest.
I always tell clients that the time to challenge this kind of thing is after the fact, not while you're in the middle of it. All the time I have people coming to me specifically about search warrants and says, well, if it's an unlawful search warrant, do I have to comply? Do I have to let the officer search my house? And I say, yes, if you're getting served with a search warrant, you have to let the officer search. The time to challenge that is later. In the same way with an arrest like this, you're doing yourself no favors for your safety, and you're also risking maybe additional charges if you are to resist that arrest. And I think we see that here.
One other point when you're talking about what was in his pocket, and you say it was drugs later on, and see, the general public doesn't understand. Oh, well, see, it was just drugs. It wasn't a gun. Well, see, no, that's not what the officer was thinking at the time. That's what was in his mind. In his mind, is a weapon.
Excellent point, which is that's another thing. We cut off a bit in the front that should be irrelevant to this analysis. That's equally irrelevant to the analysis, what it ultimately ends up being in his pants.
Can't use it.
Yeah, it's 100% the officer's perception at the time. Excellent point. Let's continue.
That wasn't.
And And right here, we immediately see that officer doing that search. It shows that that officer flagged exactly where he was reaching and had that concern.
But still, what did the officer find? We don't know. I mean, what did he feel? Have to ask him. You know, what was it? A pipe or was it a gun or what did you?
Could you even immediately tell what it was just by putting your hand over it?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could have been a pipe that the part of it that he felt like a gun, or had the same texture, or had the same, feel as a gun. So we don't know, or a knife for that matter. So yeah, I want to know what the officer was thinking there.
I don't have anything on me, officer.
Hand behind your back.
Officer, I don't have anything.
Okay, so here he's clearly trying to get compliance from this guy.
And giving lawful commands.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And he's not complying.
Yeah, clearly not complying with the arrest at this point. Tells him to put his hands behind his back, and he is struggling with it.
On me.
Behind your back.
Officer, why are you, can you just tell me, officer, please, can you tell me what I'm under arrest for, please? Please.
We'll pause it there. What are your thoughts on this move right here?
I do a lot of martial arts, and somebody in a base somebody standing up is strong. Somebody get down on the 4 points is even stronger. And there again, I want to talk to the officer. When you got him to the ground, he gets up into a base and starts getting up again. How old the officer is, what's the age of the person, build, strength. I'd want to know from the officer, did it feel like he was strong? And drugs can play a part in that also. Again, that's not in his mind. He doesn't know about the drugs that he has in his system. But yeah, I tried to take him down and wasn't able to.
Yeah, I mean, it's conceivable that the officer has an idea that somebody's on drugs, right?
Sure.
Maybe he's a certified DRE or something like that, and he notices some signs. But do you think that this was, just from a tactical perspective of effectuating an effective arrest here, do you think this was the right move of the officer?
The driver, again, is not complying and gotten his arms up, and so the officer trying to control him, get him to the ground, because that's what we're taught also. When you flatten somebody out, then they are easy to control.
Would it have been appropriate here for the officer to go for non-lethal force?
I believe so, yes, sir. You give him lawful commands, he's basically fighting with him, resisting, so yes.
Taser, pepper spray, maybe batons?
Yes, but there again, what's available to the officer, and is he going to be able to get it, use it effectively? I don't know. We're in a fight now.
Yeah, for sure. Let's continue.
Get out.
All right, let's take a look at that. This is going to be kind of the whole point that everybody's going to find contentious. The guy falls to the ground, rolls back. The officer's on his knees.
Get it.
Officer gets out the gun and discharges around while the guy looks like he is. It's tough to tell whether he looks like he's fleeing or running at the officer from that angle.
And that will be the perception of the officer then to ask.
Yeah, what are your thoughts there?
This is where I'd probably turn over to the district attorney's office. Y'all take a look at it also, to see what you want to do. But yeah, you got somebody fleeing now. Is it a felon? And what's justifiable in firing around at somebody that may be running away, or was he running towards the officer? You're asking me to look at a video that's 3 minutes long, and there's some questions there. Yes, sir.
Yeah, and I think it's really important, all the things we've flagged along the way that the video doesn't show. At the end of the day, it's going to depend on whether the officer, at the moment that he discharged that round, had a reasonable belief, determined by a jury of his peers, if he's charged, that his life was in imminent danger and he was facing deadly physical force. So, I imagine his defense attorney, certainly if I was defending the officer, I imagine his defense attorney is going to argue that he had a reasonable belief that the guy had a weapon concealed in the front of his pants and was likely to use it.
Yeah, because did he pull that object out? Don't know.
Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting. I feel like the officer is already reaching for his firearm as Randall is starting to stand up. So it seems like even before he could tell if he was coming at him or running away, he knew that he might need to use the firearm. And as he got to his feet is when he actually extended his arms and shot. So it is hard to kind of guess what is going through the officer's mind in this situation, but it's definitely relevant. If we were the officer's defense attorney, that's exactly what we'd want to know. What was going through your mind at that point? Did you feel like your life was in danger? Did you feel like this man was coming at you right at this moment, or did you think he was running away? That would be critical to the analysis, because I think a jury, if they heard that the officer thought that Randall was just trying to run away, might have a different thought on how reasonable his actions were.
Yeah, because again, the standard when I started was if I could go out and collect the shell casings, take the pictures, triangulate all the evidence, and if I could just get the officer to say I was in fear for my life, I could close up my notebook and go home. You know,
That's the old standard.
and put the officer on the stand. I was in fear for my life, and that would answer it.
Yeah.
Well, because of the Supreme Court rulings and all, you know, what's reasonable now, and got to look at these and analyze them and see what all the evidence is. What would a reasonable officer do in that situation?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, my initial reaction to this video is it's defensible for the officer, but he's going to need a good lawyer. He's going to need a competent lawyer because it has some of the features that juries typically don't like when they're seeing these cases. The fact that it turned out, once again irrelevant, but it turned out the guy was unarmed. It looks here like the guy is running away. It looks here, arguably, a district attorney might say that he went for the firearm too early without, you know, the guy actually drawing anything or going for anything, because just from the limited amount that this video shows, it looks like he's in full retreat trying to sprint away when the officer shoots him. So it's a defensible case, but it's all going to turn on those things that we've been flagging along the way.
And y'all, you know, as attorneys, you'll want a video expert to come in, you know, frames per second, you need to look at that, you know, and what is exactly is it showing? And it's only from one angle, from the vehicle cam, you know, from the officer's vehicle, and that's it. So you don't have that angle of the officer and the suspect over in the edge of the roadway.
Yeah. When he went up to the vehicle and the guy was kind of initially, I'm like backing it up here. When he went to the vehicle and the guy was initially kind of denying the traffic violation and didn't get out of the vehicle on the first request.
Right.
What other options could the officer have reasonably had here? Like, could the officer have returned to it said, okay, just wait here 1 second, sir, and then went and called for backup? Or?
Could have. And again, don't know the department size, location, how far somebody was away. So there must be some reasons why he decided to do what he did.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Yeah, my thoughts on this is the video alone makes it look like a bad shoot to me. It looks like he went for lethal too soon. But I could definitely defend this case if the officer had the frame of mind that we've been kind of flagging along the way.
Sure, and that's what it is.
Oh.
I mean, we're the other witness. There are no other witnesses.
Yeah.
You have the officer and you have the deceased.
Yeah. And another thing just to keep in mind practically is the jury's not going to well, it depends on what kind of jury you get. But if this is a jurisdiction that is more leaning towards the right side of the aisle, more friendly to guns, everything like that, they tend to support police officers more. Just as it's an overgeneralization, but just in our experience, that tends to be true. They're going to give this officer a lot more leeway. Officers have tough jobs. You know, he was in a really tough situation. The guy was clearly being uncompliant. He was trying to flee. He could have been in fear for his life. And we also don't like the deceased because he's a druggie and he was high on meth at the time and everything like that. These are practical things that, while irrelevant, frankly, to whether or not at the time that he pulled the trigger he had the legal right to do so, they're real-world concerns from a defense attorney's perspective.
Right.
Well, I was going to say another consideration I had while watching this is we've talked a lot about the self-defense aspect potentially, but is there any argument that the officer could have been justified in a sort of hot pursuit type of reasoning, that he was deploying his firearm in order to stop someone that was maybe a danger to the public from getting away? As an expert, did you see anything that would lead the officer to believe that he would be a threat to the public?
No, because again, you can't take into anything you learn later. I mean, he may have been a convicted felon, escaped. If he didn't know that, you can't use that in his justification.
Yeah.
You know, that's something you learn later.
Yeah, and likely there's not a felony committed in this video, not that I can see.
I haven't seen one.
Yeah, I see a few misdemeanors. I see a traffic violation. Let's grant the traffic violation. I see a few misdemeanor resisting arrest and failure to comply and things like that. And I'm not aware of anything in this jurisdiction or any other that would make any of this conduct felonious until he starts fleeing. Actually fleeing from officers itself is a felony. But then you have to argue that he's a dangerous, fleeing felon. And I don't know, it looks tough to me.
If he thought he had a weapon on him, would that change the analysis?
I think it would. And again, perspective from the officer. What did he feel in the pants pocket?
Do you have a final opinion on this, or do you need more information?
No, so I think we pretty well covered. But yeah, just it's hard to look at, a 3-minute video and come up with a decision, especially when I investigate. I mean, it's from start to finish and looking at totality of the circumstances,
Yeah. Now you work on both the prosecution and in the private side for defense?
Well, it's defense now. I mean, when I was working before the GBI, it was prosecution
Right.
because we were looking to see if crimes were being violated and make those arrests if needed.
Yeah.
But now it's on the defense side with attorneys through your organization and others that get called in to interview the client, because y'all know very well that first statement is so important. And if you don't give a full, complete statement to your attorney to start with, and if you start testifying and start adding things later, now it's a self-serving statement. So it's important to get all the facts down from the very start completely. And then as an attorney, if you want to make a decision, we're going to provide this to the investigating agency. That may head off a prosecution also.
Can you give any insight to our viewers about what might happen next from the officer's perspective after an officer is involved in a shooting that they're worried might be looked at as an improper use of force? How should an officer handle those next steps?
And that's tough because we worked with a Georgia State trooper who was 3 days later charged with murder, even before the investigation was complete.
Wow.
And so, and what an impact on a family. You have no money now, but he was a member of an organization that was able to bring in attorneys and myself to look at the case. And in fact, what we did on that, before I got involved in that one, his statement was 3 pages long when we got, and I had some great attorneys. I'm not taking, some real good attorneys, but it's 35 pages long when we got through sitting down, going over the facts as to everything that took place within that incident. In fact, we went to grand jury on that in Georgia. An officer can testify on their behalf, and the grand jury no building.
Nice.
Wow.
That's great. Rachel mentioned that there was a civil rights suit that was filed by the family in this case. Outside of the criminal realm, have you ever worked on either side of a civil rights case?
No, sir, nothing on the civil side. It's always been on the criminal right now. Well, some of these cases have turned into the civil, but the ones that I've been involved in have been settled. So.
Yeah, they're so intimately related too.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we only live in the criminal world too, but we work with civil rights attorneys, and we have, and many times, what happens and what is said and what the arguments are in the criminal case directly transfer over to how it affects the civil one.
Yeah, and it's a different standard too.
Yeah, hugely different
Yes.
preponderance of the evidence
Right.
rather than beyond a reasonable doubt.
Well, the officer's in an interesting spot right now because what we've learned is no charges have been brought against the officer, but there is that civil suit. However, a statute of limitations would not have run yet on a case like this. So the officer is in a situation where he's going to be going through this civil litigation where him making statements might be beneficial to the litigation. However, anything that goes on in the civil case could be used against him if criminal charges are later brought. So it is interesting right now that the officer might have to be very carefully thinking through how he handles this civil case. Sometimes there's situations where you might have to take more of a loss on a civil case than you'd like in order to protect yourself from not making statements that could later come back to hurt you in a criminal matter.
And I'd like to know if his agency mandates him to provide a statement, which can't be used in a criminal, but I think possibly in a civil.
That's right. There are different rules
Right.
for officers on the Fifth Amendment. The Fifth Amendment has some limitations for officers, say the courts.
Right.
So yeah, it's a very interesting question.
Well, my understanding is that officers can be terminated by their employer
Right.
if they refuse to provide a statement on a situation like this. And I could understand for an officer where this could be a very difficult determination to make, whether or not do I make a statement that could potentially come back to bite me in a criminal case, or do I potentially risk losing my job, the way I support my family? That must be really difficult.
And that's why you have to have some protection. I mean, beforehand. Don't wait till you use force to, sign up with, whatever group you want to sign up with, to have those attorneys on call, to call immediately and get them out there to the scene.
Would you agree with our number one piece of advice, which is if you're involved in the self-defense shooting and the cops show up, say as little as possible. We phrase it as just shut up.
Exactly. Here's the gun. Like I said, there he is over there, and whatever statement y'all want your people to say, don't say anything till you sit down with us.
100%. Yeah, that's what we tell them.
And there's nothing wrong with that. And officers ought to understand that. And in fact, they do. I mean, the GBI has a policy. We're not going to interview the officer for 48, 72 hours. But yeah, they don't do it on the civil side.
Yeah.
I'm working some now to where they were immediately arrested. And you're interviewed 30 minutes after the incident.
Wow.
And because of the stuff with human factors, your brain just doesn't. You make broad statements and there's no fill-in, and that fill-in is what's important.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's the worst time to make a statement.
And also with other officers arriving, the one I had down there in Kingsland, deputies arrived and said, "Zach, what happened?" He said, "Well, I chased him and he ran, and I chased him and we fought, and then he ran and I shot." Well, that sounds like he was shot in the back, doesn't
Sure does,
it?
yeah.
It wasn't the case, but the brain just said, and it wasn't in the proper order either. So that's why it's important to sit down and go over all the facts.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure you've had, as we have, many cases where it could have been a great defense, but for our own client statements.
Yes.
Yeah. I know you wanted to ask about qualified immunity.
Yeah, I just wanted to hear your opinions on whether or not you feel that officers should have qualified immunity for situations like this.
I do, because I mean you're given a gun and you say enforce these laws, on our behalf, for the state or for the city or for the county, and there's got to be some type of protection there. But everybody thinks, oh, it's automatic, but it's not. There's a hearing for that, and you must overcome that immunity hearing. And so that's where it's important to explain everything that happened here. So 75% are granted. So there's, the other percentage is not granted, immunity. So you've got to go through that process.
Yeah, this is a super controversial topic, right? There's people on both sides that think this system has problems, right?
Right.
There are people that say there's not enough qualified immunity. Cops aren't able to do their jobs in the current environment. Everybody is super hostile to cops right now. And so unless we expand qualified immunity, they're not going to be able to do their jobs. And then the critique from the other side is the cops are running rampant. This is allowing people who are, in the best cases, just recklessly or negligently handle the situation. Worst cases, they're psychopaths who are out there victimizing everybody, and we should get rid of this and treat them just like normal citizens. We hear this as defense attorneys. We hear both sides all the time.
I'm glad I'm retired now. But as a citizen now, I may have to still use force.
Yeah, It's a tough time to be a cop right now.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, they're getting it from both sides. They're getting hate and vitriol from both sides right now. Between the defund the police and all cops are bastards on one side, and the other side saying they're the Gestapo, they're expanding to try to take our gun rights, and we don't trust the cops anymore. It's tough to be a cop right now.
Well, I grew up in a law enforcement family, so my wife and my mother had to go through, is he coming home tonight?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you ever assist with the qualified immunity hearings as in an expert
Yes.
capacity?
Oh, sure, because that's where what I developed, this is where this statement is either going to make or break it. I mean,
Okay.
you're trying to tell a judge exactly what happened, and just like in the trooper case, we put those 24 grand jurors in the seat of that chase from start to finish, and that's what you got to do with the judge. I mean, it's got to be the open book. You've got to explain everything. If you're justified in doing it, man, explain away. Don't leave anything out.
Yeah, what are those hearings like?
Well, it's testimony. I mean, it's being crossed, by the prosecution, and it's just like a trial. But it's explaining what happened.
Sure. And what's the standard? Like, do you know the legal standards for what?
No, sir, I'm not an attorney.
No,
so.
that's fair. Yeah, I wonder what the legal standards are. I can't imagine they're as stringent as being convicted of a crime, for example, beyond a reasonable doubt. It's got to be a lower standard to show, so I guess the testimony, how the hearings work is the testimony is aimed at trying to convince a judge
Right.
that the conduct of the officer fell within what is allowed by the qualified immunity statutes.
All right. Had one in Atlanta, canine, usage of a canine in an arrest. And judge granted him immunity because he acted properly.
Yeah. So to those people who are critical of qualified immunity, they should be attacking the statutes surrounding what constitutes, what's acceptable under qualified
Well, I
immunity.
think the public just thinks, oh, he automatically has immunity. No, it's not the case.
Yeah, that is the perception.
It is.
Yeah, everybody just assumes, oh, it's an officer, he has qualified immunity, so he gets away with it.
Right.
Yeah, okay, interesting.
If you liked what you heard from Doug today, you can learn all about him on our website, attorneysonretainer.us. So Doug is actually one of our experts that if you have a case, maybe like a shooting like this one, Doug could be an expert that we could call. So Doug, we're really excited to have you on our team.
Yeah, honored to be there to help out, in these types of cases.
Yeah, what we've been trying to do as this program expands is wherever possible just collect talented experts that we can use in our cases. So yeah, we were super happy to strike a deal with you and excited to work with you.
Yeah, and you've got some other great ones on there also.
Yes,
So,
absolutely. Yeah. Awesome. All right, everybody, go and check out attorneys on retainer.us to learn all about our self-defense program and what it can do for you. Also, check out attorneysforfreedom.com to learn about our law firm and how we defend our clients. If you like the video, make sure to like it. Leave us a comment down below and share it with a friend. Until next time, this has been Andy, Rachel, and Doug signing out. Peace.